Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli back out here in the shop. We have another really good, timely topic for you today. And we've been talking about pre-spawn fishing, pre-spawn bass fishing. And it's a really interesting period because this is fishing for fish that are leaving their winter stuff, heading to their spawning stuff, but they're moving. They're sliding, they're transient. For sure, during the pre-spawn, a crankbait is one of my best baits when I'm fishing those transition banks. But I have another lure that I love in the pre-spawn, especially for big fish, and especially when the water is stained to dirty. Now think about this. Pre-spawn, we're talking about February, March, April, spring showers. There's always a lot of rain this time of the year. The water has a tendency to get dirty, muddy, quick. Because of all those reasons, I'm here to tell you about the pre-spawn spinnerbait as being one of my best lures during this time frame. But here's the thing, guys. The pre-spawn spinnerbait is a very specific style of spinnerbait. And we're going to go over that today. We're going to talk about what makes a good pre-spawn spinnerbait, the characteristics that you want, especially in blade selection. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some modifications and the banks to fish it on. What kind of banks and what kind of cover to fish this lure around. But let's start by, once again, I want you to know what this pre-spawn period means. And this is the time of the year where fish have wintered. It's been cold. December, January, dude, coldest time of the year, fish were wintering in their winter mode. But now, February, March, April, depending on where you live, that water temperature is creeping up, right? That water temperature in the pre-spawn is bumping up a little bit, right? Every week you see a degree or two rise in water temperature. Your air temperature is also rising, right, as spring approaches, and your days are getting longer. Your light is longer. Because of all those reasons, in the pre-spawn period, fish are migrating from where they've wintered, and they're going to start heading to where they're eventually going to spawn, okay? So that's the pre-spawn period. Water temperature-wise, a lot of it depends on where you live. I would typify the pre-spawn water temperature as this. You ready? Water from the low 40s to low 50s, mid 50s in lots of different parts of the country. The Northeast, the Midwest, a lot of parts of the area that get true winters. That's what we're talking about. But even in the South, even on the West Coast, in warmer climates, water temperature is going to be low 50s to mid 50s, right? 51, 52, up to 56, 57 degrees. Pre-spawn movement, right? The time when they're transitioning from where they wintered to where they're going to spawn, okay? There it goes. And when fish are sliding along those banks and that water gets stained or dirty, I don't think there is a better lure to throw than a spinnerbait. But specifically, I want to tell you, for me, what makes a pre-spawn spinnerbait. It's a little different style spinnerbait than what you would throw, say, in the post-spawn or the summertime or the fall. It's a little different style. And these are two of my favorite pre-spawn spinnerbaits. The first one is a really special spinnerbait. And this thing is good year-round, but man, mark it right now. Hear me tell you that in the pre-spawn, it's hard to beat a single-bladed spinnerbait, especially a short arm single-bladed spinnerbait. When it comes to a spinnerbait that has vibration and flash mixed together, right? Not just one or the other, but vibration and flash. This is a special one. And it really throws out a distinctive thump as you reel that thing. Remember, colder water, specifically stained to dirty water. And we want that thump. We want that vibration, right? So single blade spinnerbaits, especially a short arm. By the way, that's a Mullick's Lover short arm, aka Shorty. Really cool spinnerbait. And then the second style spinnerbait I want to select is a double Colorado style spinnerbait. Double Colorado. And, you know, typically when you look at these baits, you're going to have a smaller Colorado or Indiana on the lead and a larger Colorado on the tail, right? This is a Mullick's water slash, but every company, every spinnerbait company out there makes this blade combination. Double Colorado or Indiana Colorado combination. It's compact. And just like the short arm, just like that single blade, this tandem blade, especially with that big Colorado on the back, puts out tons of vibration. Tons of vibration. Remember, colder water, stained to muddy water, vibration's key, okay? So in the pre-spawn period, specifically single spins and double Colorados or tandem with an Indiana Colorado. These are cold water spinnerbaits, right? Leave your double willows at home. Leave that at home. Go toward a big single blade or a Colorado on that tail. Go for the vibration during this period, okay? This is one of the times of the year, this pre-spawn period, where I want some form of trailer on the spinnerbait. And I'm going to show you two ways to do it, but I want an extra action in the back. Think about this water. It's cold. A lot of times it's stained to muddy. So a little extra kick on the back is going to add to some visual appeal, okay? It's going to add to that reflex strike that we're going to get. One way to do it is, and the great thing about this Mullick's Lover short arm is this comes like this out of the pack. But you can do this real easily yourself, is to add just an extra piece of long silicone in the back. So on this Mullick short arm, you can see that almost like two tails that hang out the back. And that itself is a trailer because you're going to have a separate movement and vibration in the back. You could do that yourself by just tying in two extra pieces of long silicone, using a zip tie. If you watch my shorts, you're going to hear more about that later. Using two long pieces of silicone in the back to add your trailer. Or one of the best times of the year in the pre-spawn to add a plastic trailer. And I love adding a plastic trailer to these spinnerbaits as well. And I've really experimented with a lot of different types of trailers when that water's cold, and this is one of my favorites. It's just a single tail grub. Every soft plastic company out there makes one of these things. It's a single tail grub, 3 to 5 inches, depending on the spinnerbait. And I just want to add that on that spinnerbait. Now, a lot of times this is a little 1/2 ounce Mullick's water slash. There's that Indiana Colorado that we talked about. And I just bite a little tip of that grub off, little single tail grub. I just bite about 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch off of it. and I'm going to thread it on that spinnerbait. Keep in mind, when you thread that single grub trailer on the spinnerbait, thread it so that the curl of the tail is facing the opposite way of the bend of the hook. Because that's going to give you the best action, right? So I want to just simply thread it on there. Just make sure it's nice and straight. Make sure that tail, the curls, going the opposite way of the hook. And there it goes. It's the one time of the year in the pre-spawn where I want some form of trailer, okay? Adding a trailer, I typically do not add a trailer hook, especially because of the way I'm fishing it and where I'm going to fish this thing during the pre-spawn. I'm not adding a trailer hook, but I always want some form of trailer, right? Colder water, dirtier water, the fish are going to find the bait. Vibration, thump, a little extra in the back. It's a good time of the year to put a regular trailer on. All right, you know the spinnerbait, you know about the trailer. Now let's talk about where we're going to fish it and specifically what kind of cover I'm targeting. And this is where it gets really good, all right? Remember, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Pre-spawn period, cold water, slightly warming, fish that are moving, sliding from where they wintered to where they're eventually going to spawn, those banks going into creeks, going into pockets and coves, right? Those transition banks, especially banks that have a 45-degree angle taper to them, right? They have a contour break. That's the banks the fish are going to slide along. When I'm going down those banks and I'm targeting individual pieces of cover, when that water, especially when that water is stained to dirty to muddy, this is when this thing shines, guys, okay? So I'm using this spinnerbait in the pre-spawn to target fish. All right, I know what you're saying. What are the targets? There's always going to be cover targets on these transition banks. A lot of lakes we're going to fish have grass, okay? They're isolated clumps of grass, new grass growth that's just in patches along that break line. I've seen lakes with hydrilla, milfoil. I've seen lakes with curly cabbage, pepper grass. So a great place to throw this spinnerbait. Another cover form that I love in the pre-spawn period on a lot of lakes that we're going to fish, rock. And specifically I'm talking about, chunk rock to isolated boulders to hard scrabble rock and rock that mixes with something else. You're going down a bank and you start seeing isolated chunks of rock on your graph, or you look on the bank and you can see some boulders falling down into the water, and you can assume that they continue down that 45-degree angle bank, right? So rock, and one of my favorites in the pre-spawn, to use that pre-spawn spinnerbait, wood cover. And so many of the lakes we're going to fish during the pre-spawn have some form of wood cover along that transition bank, right? I've seen that wood cover be stumps, isolated stumps. Sometimes topped out to where you can see them just under the surface. Sometimes black spots. You can literally see like a round black spot. Standing timber. I've seen where there's isolated pieces of standing timber along that transition bank. Docks. If there's a lone dock, a single dock that sticks out on that one bank that heads to the spawning cove, guess where those fish are going to pre-spawn? On that single dock, right? Laydowns. Laydowns are great in the pre-spawn, especially when they fall off the bank and it's like a ladder across that 45-degree angle bank, right? They have to stop there. It's like a ladder. So any kind of wood cover on that transition bank, perfect for that pre-spawn, colder water spinnerbaiting, right? Remember, single blade, Colorado, a tandem Colorado blade. They're the kind of spinnerbait you want. All right, we know the spinnerbait. We know the importance of finding that isolated cover. The water, remember, the water's cold. It's stained and dirty. Now let's talk about how to fish this thing. And we are going to use, you ready for this? In the pre-spawn period, when we're fishing the pre-spawn style spinnerbaits, we are going to use the slow roll stutter technique, okay? Slow roll stutter technique. This is such an effective technique. And when I look back on wins or high finishes over the years in my tournament fishing, so many of them were won or lots of top tens with this slow roll stutter technique. There's so many, I can't even tell you. Jason Christie, for sure, is one of the masters of this technique. If you don't believe me, go back and look at some of the pre-spawn footage of Jason Christie fishing Grand Lake, Oklahoma, any place that has stained and dirty water when that water's in the low 50s. Guess what he's going to be throwing around isolated cover? The tandem Colorado or a single blade. Trust me, okay? So we're going to use a slow roll stutter technique. Here it is in a nutshell, guys. We're going to take that bait and we're going to cast it out past that isolated piece of cover, right? Let's call it a stump. We see that dark spot. It sits right on that break line and the water's stained. We're going to cast past that stump. We're going to let that spinnerbait sink all the way to the bottom. A lot of times we're targeting that 2 to 6 foot zone, right? On these transition banks. 2 to 6 foot on that 45-degree angle taper. That's where those fish are going to be transitioning, moving. And when there's a piece of cover, that's where they're going to stop. We're going to cast past that stump, and we're going to let this thing sink all the way to the bottom. Watch the line as it sinks every once in a while, as it helicopters down, especially that one. You might get a bite, so pay attention. But as soon as that spinnerbait hits the bottom, your line bellows out. I want you to start that slow roll technique. The great thing about the slow roll technique is it's very self-descriptive. You're just rolling it real slow, right? You're just turning your reel handle just methodically and slowly. And as you turn that, you're going to feel that vibration, that single spin, that Colorado tandem, that big Colorado on the back. You're going to feel thump, thump, thump. You're going to feel that same vibration the fish feels. You're going to feel it through your rod. So we're going to slow roll. And as we approach that stump, there's two things we want to do. We want to hit the cover. We want to actually hit the cover, the stump, the grass patch, the dock, the laydown, the brush. We want to hit it with that spinnerbait, but we're going to stutter our reel, right? So slow roll. And then as we approach that stump, all I do is I give it a quick turn and stop it. It's like a stutter, right? So we're going to be reeling and then a quick turn and stop. And then back to that normal slow roll. A quick turn and then stop, right? A stutter and then keep going. A lot of times I'll even, as I do that stutter with my reel, as I'm getting near this cover, a lot of times I'll even give my rod just a little flick and little, right? So if you're looking at the rod tip, you're slow rolling, you stutter and pause. And as I stutter and pause, I just give it a little tink, just a real little rod movement, maybe a couple inches, a tink. And so it's slow roll, approaching the cover. I want to hit the stump, quick stutter, a pause, and jerk the reel, jerk the rod at the same time, right? And those little movements, that stutter, with that little rod twitch, along with hitting the cover, every time you do that, that spinnerbait's running normal, slow rolling, hits it, or it stutters and it changes that blade, right? That blade's very rhythmic, methodical, big, heavy vibration. And then you hit or stutter and it, boop, it changes it. The skirt flares, that trailer moves. This trailer kind of ticks. And just like those pre-spawn crankbaits, when it hits something, it triggers a bite, okay? So 45-degree angle transition banks, targeting cover, stain to dirty cold water. Nothing beats that spinnerbait. Make it change direction. Use the slow stutter technique, that slow roll stutter technique. You're going to get big bites in that cooler, dirty water in the pre-spawn. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. This is a fun time of the year where you're going to get a lot of big bites, 4, 5, 6 pound bites, fishing that specifically that pre-spawn style spinnerbait. Hope you enjoyed it, man. Listen, if you like what you're listening to, if you like these videos, hit that subscribe button. It's right down there. It's red. It's flashing. Hit that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to my channel. If you're already a subscriber, tell your buddies about it. Tell your buddies about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to help you learn more, hopefully catch more fish, and catch a fish of a lifetime. Pre-spawn spinnerbait fishing. We'll see you later.